The Colorado Avalanche and Jonathan Drouin's agent set to talk this week. Is that just the beginnings? Is something going to get done, or they have a month to get something done? What are we expecting? New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure you're subscribed to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. And when you do, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. We get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. If you're watching over on the YouTube, you can see what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to get to the Stanley Cup. We'll talk about it once, and that's it.
Never again.
Maybe a couple times. It is a big deal. It's always a big deal. And we're going to start talking free agents, and we'll break it up, obviously, by position. And today we will get to the centers. So where we are going to start, however, today, sir, is there was a little bit of news coming out, and we'll take this little bit of news and blow it up and make it the biggest news of the day, of the month, of the year. Maybe not of the year, but and well, it is kind of big. You know, I don't want to minimize it at all, but you had who was it over on The Athletic? Pierre LeBrun, who put up an article, just one of those mouth vomit articles that they put up, where just a ton of information going over a ton of different teams, a lot of different players. And one that he put up was talking about how Jonathan Drouin's agent and the Colorado Avalanche are set to meet sometime this week. And it's very short, just a couple paragraphs. So I'll just read them off to you. He says, there's mutual interest in staying put from team and player in each case. But of course, that doesn't mean it will happen. Obviously, Nathan MacKinnon wants his pal Drouin to stay put. The complication in Colorado is how the Avs navigate the Valenchuskin situation, not to mention the uncertainty with Captain Gabriel Landeskog. But all things being equal, I think, this is Pierre LeBrun, I think the Avs get Drouin signed. So, yeah, I mean, they're meeting this week. That like you said, it doesn't mean, like, that's the start. Negotiations can go in a number of different ways when you're talking with free agents, whether they are big name or the smaller name guys, the smaller contracts. There is interest, but you know, I've been covering and following this team for a very long time, been following sports for a very long time. Just because there's mutual interest doesn't mean they can come to a common ground. You get the feeling that they can, though, with this. You know, this is different than like the Grubauer thing. There was mutual interest there too. But Grubauer wanted a little bit more money, and hey, when you're a free agent, you can ask for that, and you're sticking to your guns. And nope, this is what I want. This is what I feel I'm worth. And he went out and he got that. I think Drouin knows the situation here, and he knows he can probably go out and get a little bit more money somewhere else. And like we've said so many times, it just comes down to the fit. Just seems right where he is with the Avalanche. But it's a good sign that, at least for this week, they're going to meet and start fleshing out the details, whatever they may be.
Yeah, it's positive. This is what you want to hear. And honestly, this is kind of like the cup they're about to start playing for the cup, and business is already in order for next year. So that's a positive sign. The Avs are already getting ready to build this team for next year. And it's nice that it starts with Jonathan Drouin. If I was the agent, I'd walk in there and say, "Hey, JD, baby, how little can we get you in here for? We don't have a lot of money, buddy." And honestly, you hope the Nathan MacKinnon factor comes into play. You hope that he does lean a little team friendly, because the Avs do not have a lot of money to play, and he has to understand that too. And if you do have mutual interests, yes, we would like you here. And hey, you had a great year in Colorado. Let's run it back one more time, but you might not be getting paid what you probably should anywhere else.
The funny thing is, like, we talk about like his number, what the number could be, and I'm still kind of just fascinated at the money that is going to get thrown at him, where people are feeling like he's turned his career around just based on 1 year in a good situation with the Avalanche. Yeah, I like the guy. I like how he played here. I think he fits here. If he goes somewhere else, I mean, it would have to depend on where that place is. It's tough for me to say what I'm about to say, but I'm pretty confident in no matter where else he goes. I think the jury's still going to be out on if he can replicate what he did in Colorado. Because when we did our grade on him, I dinged him a little bit for that getting to know you period. He's gonna have to go do that again if he leaves the Avalanche. And who's to say it doesn't last longer if it's not the right fit wherever he goes? Like if he's just, I don't feel like he's going to be a guy that's just going to chase the money. I think he understands the value of a fit. But let's just say worst case scenario for him is he does. He just goes after whatever team is giving him the most money, and that's not a fit. That's going to look like Russell Wilson contract to me. You know what I mean? It's just, I feel like the feeling obviously is mutual. I think they both want to get this done. And where he's going to end up with the Avalanche is in that what we kind of guessed about the 3.5 to 4. I think 4.5 is going high for him. And I think that's where he should be with any team. This over 5 thing right now, it's just too early. If the Avs gave him.
And you locked up there, and you're making really good points about the risk that you run into when you're giving Drouin this money. But you also have to see like the power shift that we're looking at right now. Like Toronto's going to be looking for a piece to add to the team. Hey, look at the Cup. Look at who is playing for the Stanley Cup right now. You have Edmonton and Florida. Where's Tampa Bay? Wouldn't it make sense for Tampa Bay just to kick the tires on Drouin? Hey, you want to come back and try it one more time? Like you could do, hey, Dallas, they just got knocked out. Hey, Drouin, we have some tape on you. We saw what you could do. We could throw $4 million at you. Like there are teams that are not so much stacked like the Colorado Avalanche are, top to bottom, but there are teams that are wanting to make one last push, one last effort while their windows are closing more than Colorado's. There are other teams that have the money that, I mean, basically the Avalanche are sitting like the Minnesota Wild with just contracts you don't know what they're going to do with. There are 2 contracts the Avalanche are holding on to that really they have no certainty on. And they're trying to navigate and put a team together around 2 big contracts. And if you want money and a little bit more stability, there are other teams out there.
I'm just amazed at how, there's going to be so many people knocking at his door after one season where, he turned it around that one season. But you have a lot more to go off of his struggles that came before this year in Colorado. So, you got to feel like those other teams realize like he did well in Colorado just because that's a good fit for him. And are those teams going to be like, he can replicate that with us? Might not be the same system, but they're still going to throw the money at him, and we'll see what he does. I hope he stays. I get the feeling that he will. I get a good vibe that he will, and take a little bit of a haircut to stay in a good situation where he can hit the ground running next year and not have that getting to know you period. He already knows where he fits in, what's going to happen, and away you go. And that would just be an exciting season to watch for him next season.
And I hope he does come back because he is an incredible talent and makes Nathan MacKinnon better, and Nathan MacKinnon makes Drouin better. So
absolutely,
you can't go wrong with any of that.
They have the month it's just him and the Avs for a month, and July 1 is when the league calendar flips over, and then he's open season. And maybe he wants to get to that point. Maybe even when you do have these conversations with the Avs, he still says, this is my first unrestricted contract. Let me just see what's out there. And he has that right to do that, but it also could get, it's one of those things. I'll never forget the Gabe Landeskog contract where we all thought he was heading towards free agency. And then in the 13th hour, something got done. Could that happen here? Sure, it could. You never know. Yeah. One more thing you got? What?
And if this is one of those that he does come back to Colorado, this speaks volumes to the way that the Avs are wheeling and dealing and putting things together. If they can land your win, that gives you a lot of faith for the rest of this team's makeup and what it's going to be looking like, because this is the first big step to putting together the team for next year. If they can land your win, things are looking up for the Avalanche.
Yeah. And Vegas thinks things are looking up for the Avalanche as well. They already have, this is over at FanDuel, obviously, our favorite sponsor. Excuse me. Oh, still not over it, dude. This is a summer-long cold that I got going on. They have the favorites up for next season already over at FanDuel. And right now, the early favorite is the Edmonton Oilers. They are plus 900. In second place, you have three teams at plus 950. So not that further away from the Edmonton Oilers. And those three teams are the Carolina Hurricanes, the Dallas Stars, and the Colorado Avalanche. FanDuel has Colorado Avalanche as the second favorite team to win the Stanley Cup next year. What do you think of that?
In the words of the wise daytime television show Price is Right, that's too much, Bob. I get it. I bleed burgundy and blue, but sight unseen, we just talked about the Drouin situation. I think that might be a little high for all.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, with all this uncertainty and all the other teams gearing up and having a little bit more of a leg up on what they want next year, I think this is honestly just a little bit too high. And hey, 2022 is getting a little bit farther away, and I think the Avalanche swagger it's just not there right now, especially with, like we mentioned, the Val contract, the Gabe contract. You don't know what this team is like.
And that's true for a ton of teams right now, almost all teams right now. So what they're going off of right now, these are going to change. Like once free agency comes, if something happens to a player where he's going to be at, these will change. But with the Avs, I think they just like the fact that their core and their top players are signed, are locked up, and everything that they have to sign are the holes. So, and that's true for Carolina. Florida Panthers are next at plus 1,000, and after them are Vegas at plus 1,200. So it's early. Don't take this to the bank right now, but I think that goes. And the Avalanche have been up there for how many years in a row now?
Yeah.
So when you have those guys signed, when you have those guys under contract, locked up, I think Vegas sees the value in that. And if you hit it right with free agents and plugging the holes that you need to plug every year, like every team has to do, then you're going to remain up there. So we'll see how it pans out. But I thought that was interesting. Thought it was interesting to see the Avalanche are already pretty high up in the eyes of Vegas.
Yeah, and it shows when you look at the Cup Final that it's good to have a good core, but depth is where it's at, and that's the big question mark around the Avalanche coming up next year.
All right. So let's talk about that Stanley Cup for a little bit and what it means to the Colorado Avalanche. Why not? Let's make everything about the Avalanche, because that's all that really matters.
That's right.
We're going to do that right after this. All right, let's talk about FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. And right now, the Florida Panthers are the favorite, according to FanDuel, to win the Stanley Cup. They are, but it's close. I think this is going to be a very good series, very close series, but they have Florida for the money line at minus 130, while Edmonton is only a plus 108. So they feel like this is going to be a very close series, and I would tend to agree. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. That is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we have our Stanley Cup set. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. I think it's going to be a very, very good series. Kyle, if you're watching on YouTube, he's just shrugging his shoulders. Do you not care? I mean, it's the Cup final, man. Like you have to care. It doesn't matter what teams are in it. Like this is creme de la creme right now, man. This is the best trophy in sports.
My word, if I just came back from the moon and I said, "Oh God, thank God I'm back. Please tell me who's in the Stanley Cup," and you told me Edmonton and Florida, I would get right back on that shuttle and go right back to the moon.
Because of what, though? Because of the Edmonton side, the Florida side, or the combination of those two teams don't really get you excited?
Yeah, the combination of now, like I'm just speaking to the general sports fan, the just casual hockey fan. That doesn't get me going.
Really?
It's not. No, like Florida. Yes, it's a great team. It's scrappy. That's wonderful. McDavid. That's cool. But I feel like second period of the first game, you're just like, okay, we're going to hear about McDavid like we did Bedard all season long, and then
Yeah.
everything this Florida team is going to be compared to last year and what they are not doing compared to what they did against Vegas. And I feel like the narratives are just whatever. But like for hockey fans, I hope this goes 7 games, and I hope this is one of those series that you walk away like really wanting to care about one of these teams. Like it has, like the team that comes out of this could have that Los Angeles Kings feel, like a really good time and place moment. You could build that in this series, and I can't wait to see like the best player in the world against honestly the best team mentality in the Florida Panthers. I kind of want to see that dynamic go on. But a casual hockey fan, especially a sports fan, if I see Stanley Cup, woo woo, graphic, and then Edmonton, Florida, I'm like, okay, whatever. Let me go watch Boston and the Mavericks in the finals.
I think you're right with the I don't want it to be Connor McDavid overload because I know about Connor McDavid. Like we talk about this sport how many times a year. Like this is kind of like, we're in the know with him. But I think you're gonna get a healthy dose of Connor McDavid frenzy because he's the selling point. I get it. I get that part of it. But that'll bring in the casual fan. It will. The fact that he's in the Cup final, that will bring in the casual fan. And I think and this is on ESPN, isn't it? So
yeah, ABC,
yeah, ABC. You are going to get you are going to be Connor McDavid out by the end of this thing because that is what ESPN does. They promote the player first and then the sport and the game second. That's just what they do. So if you prepare yourself for that going in, maybe a little bit more of an easier way to watch the game because I'm fully prepared for just Connor McDavid overload. But the downside of that is like both teams are really good teams. There's really good players on both sides. We don't need to make it about Connor McDavid all the time. But what's going to happen is like he just makes one move and you're just going to be like, oh my goodness, let's go to the tweet machine and just see, post over and over about this one little move that's just ESPN's mentality. I really hope they focus on the moments and the game in front of them while it's going on and not all the outside chatter, just Connor McDavid overload. It's going to happen. I just hope they try to keep it to a little bit of a minimum because these are two really good, fun teams to watch. And I said it in yesterday's episode, I don't have a rooting interest here to start. That can change. There's always something when I've done this before, when I don't really care and I don't dislike either one of the teams. This could be in a different sport too. As I'm watching, there could be some things that happen where like not rooting for you anymore, Team X. I'm going for the other team. And it wouldn't surprise me if Matthew Tkachuk does something to make me feel that way and root for Edmonton. But Edmonton's got guys on their team too, Darnell Nurse, who can do some things where I'm like, nope, don't want you either. So it could go in any direction. But right now, I'm happy that I'm just going to be able to watch a Stanley Cup final and have zero rooting interest and just enjoy the games.
And just to make it a little bit more fun, Corey Perry is also with the Oilers.
He
But
is. Yeah.
and I'll let me give you Shaggy Von Doom's Avalanche guide to watching the Cup. If you are a fan of Calvin Pickard, he's with
Yeah,
Edmonton.
sure.
But for those recent Avalanche fans, Erod is a
He
member
is,
of the
yeah.
Florida Panthers.
Right.
And that's who I'm going to be cheering for throughout this Cup final. I'm going to be a Panther fan like crazy. I want to see McDavid go down. I don't want to see Corey Perry have any success. That's just where I'm going to be. So meow.
Yeah. You got your rats ready, basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, right now, like I said, it wouldn't matter to me either way, but I appreciate like greatness, right? And when you have a player, a generational player, and someone like Connor McDavid, to be able to say that you watched him, and it's just like Gretzky. I'm not comparing him to Gretzky, not doing that. I'm just saying, like, when Gretzky was playing, you realized the greatness, and I rooted for that, and you root for those guys to win, because when you get older as a person, you can look back and say, like, I saw him do that. When I was in my 30s and 40s, I saw him do that. It was one of the greatest ever. And, and he's got championships to show for it.
And
I like doing that stuff now.
And you know what really grinds my gears, Chris? That if the Avalanche could have handled what they needed to do, we could have got the dream Cup matchup of the Avalanche versus the Panthers. And this would have been one of the more incredible Stanley Cup finals in recent, like, this would have just been incredible.
Fun.
Let's go 14 games with these two. That would have been so much fun. But
do you think if the Avs could have gotten past the Stars in some way, some fashion, how do you think that matchup with Edmonton would have went?
Well, the goalies would be a neutral moot point. It'd be defense and just isolating Connor McDavid, making it uncomfortable. But Edmonton has really good depth, where the depth for the Avalanche disappeared in that Stars series. Just if they lucked their way through the Dallas series and got to Edmonton, it would have been interesting. That one would have felt like it would have been a 6 or 7 game series, and a tired Avalanche team would have got to the end. But I think the Nichushkin cloud was just too big, no matter what perfect circumstance you wanted to paint for this Avalanche team.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah. I mean, you can turn to that now and say, like, that obviously hurt them in the Dallas series. If they were able to get beyond Dallas to start a fresh series without Nichushkin, and know that you have to go against a team like Edmonton, what he brought was huge. But I always go back to the comments from Jared Bednar after playing Edmonton, and they'll throw any of their defensive pairings out there. He's got confidence in the defensive pairings against Connor McDavid, and it shows. Like, they did very well shutting him down for the majority of their games. It's tough to do that over 7 straight, but they would have had the confidence going into that matchup with them that, yeah, we can beat these guys.
It's how good you, Jack Johnson.
And
he loved
Jones.
No, Jack liked shutting Connor McDavid down whenever he had that chance. He loved that.
You know who shut him down? Sammy G.
Yeah,
shut down Connor McDavid for an entirety of a game.
Yeah,
earlier this year, played fantastic against him. So it would have been fun. And then if they get to the Cup final, that's, who knows what happens. But you're right. It would have been a very exciting. Those storylines would have been great.
Oh,
just the current ones, and what happened when the first Stanley Cup for the Avalanche against Florida, like, all that stuff would have came back. So it would have been fun, but I still think this one is going to be. I'm looking forward to it.
Prove me wrong.
All right. We will talk about it when it's all said and done as well. One more thing we're going to get to today, and that is starting to look at some free agents. Just in general, it's going to be kind of a quiet offseason for the Avs. But what's available? Not necessarily for them, just what's available. And we'll start with the centers, and we'll do that next. All right, free agent season. I love it. I love free agency season. I love the draft. I love all that stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. In another world, in another life, I would have done that. I would have been a GM and probably terrible at
I would have been Kevin Costner in draft day.
it. Which ended good for him, but I would have had everybody hating me for just some of the moves that I would make that I know would be wrong. I know I love it, but I also know I'd be terrible at it.
Yeah.
So free agents for this upcoming off season in the NHL. Again, there's some big names out there, not coming the Avalanche way. We're going to start with centers. I think the big name right now, he's an unrestricted, and that's Steven Stamkos. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. I haven't talked to Denker too much about Adam Denker, host of Locked On Lightning. I haven't talked too much about that, but God, man, if he's in another uniform, that would just look weird.
Oh, that would be atrocious. I don't know how that would work. Like we were talking about Drouin fitting anywhere else. Like, what does Stammer bring to another team? What, like, he's like the heart and soul of Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
How do you apply that to any other roster? That's just that's an
weird.
enigma.
It's weird. So, I mean, your big names based on last year's AAV: Stamkos, Sam Reinhart, who's obviously still playing, Jake Gunsel, Adam Henrique, who's still playing with Edmonton. We got, who else is on here? Marcia Salt's on here with Vegas. That's going to be interesting to see what they pull. And then you go, like, if you're the Avalanche, you know what? I had someone message me and say, if Joe Pavelski wanted to come play for you for 1 year, league minimum, would you do that? And I responded, I probably would. He's going to be 40 next year. He's going to be 40 years old, and I think like 4 months he turns 40. So that is a risk. And here we are talking about, hey, we're going to get rid of Jack Johnson, Andrew Cogliano, and then you bring in a 40-year-old veteran, but he's been an Avalanche killer for his entire career. I don't think that they are going to go that route. But you know what? I wouldn't be against that for a league, because that's what you have to do. You have to find veterans who are on the downside of their career that will take league minimum, or guys that haven't really done much of anything, just have lived on the bottom six, and you just go plucking them and hope that they can have a good season. I'd rather go for the veterans.
See, and I kind of disagree. I would go the opposite route, because again, we're going to be talking about this all year until his puck drops on next season. But Gabe and Nuke, the two contracts, we got to have a nickname for this enigma. The last thing you want to do is go get a veteran, and then he plays 20 games, rips or tears or breaks something, and then that's a contract that was just a waste. We went out there, made that effort. A 40-year-old Pavelski, like, you've got to start playing. I don't think like the veteran presence is what you really need. I feel like we talked draft day reference. The Avs need to play Moneyball. They really need to get. They need to get superior performance with inferior pay. And you need to give, like Nichushkin, how Dallas gave up on him. You need to find other players of that same accord. And you need to bring them in and give them another shot. We know your potential. You could do it here for league men, maybe $1 million. Give us 1 year. Let's see what we could do. And then after we figure out this Gabe and Nuke thing, if you perform, and you're one of our stellar performance, and you do rehab your career here, then talk to us after next season.
Yeah. And you're just going down this list, and nobody really just sticks out to me like that could be that guy that just hasn't really been given a bigger opportunity that could do it with the Avalanche. I don't know. Is there anybody that's on your radar here or what?
You don't want to get Tyson Jost?
No, we were talking about him earlier. Like, what's his stats?
Oh,
he's got 40 some games. He's got like 9 points.
He's played 43 games, 6 points. For those on YouTube, I'm holding it up with my hands.
What happened to Tyson Jost? Like, there was so much promise with him, and when I looked it up, he's unrestricted, but he's 26 years old. So I was like, what's going on there? Buffalo is just not giving him a qualifying offer. So that makes him unrestricted. They're just moving on from him. Anybody can go want him. They can go have him. But who is it going to be? It's not going to be the Colorado Avalanche. That is not going to happen. Like that. Those are bad numbers. Really bad numbers.
And that's one that you don't want to entertain. Like you could clearly see, like they have to be smart with their rehab projects too. You can't just go picking up something like a Jost and say, yeah, come back, we could do this, and then it'd be the same just negative of getting Pavelski and getting hurt and getting Jost and carrying that contract all year long and wishing you didn't.
Some guys who are kind of on the lower end. Rem Pitlick over on Chicago. I have kind of liked him.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's gonna want going into this year, but that could maybe is an option. You got Matthias Janmark with Edmonton, who's obviously still playing, but is that an option? There was someone else who the Avs had that they who did they give? Oh, Callahan Burke.
Yeah.
Callahan Burke with the trade that brought in Caleb Jones with Carolina is unrestricted. I liked what Burke brought to the team. When they called him up every once in a while, he was great in Loveland. It's great down there. Is that one that they circle the wagons on and turn it around and just bring him right back? Looking at this, like who's on this list of centers, it's thin. So you either have to really find a diamond in the rough or go after someone that you already know, and maybe Callahan Burke, or this is your youth has got to take the reins on something here.
Well, and I have a list on Cap Friendly that has Sam Steele listed.
What's he? I mean, he was 850,000 last year.
It seems like the ideal, like bring him in low, because he did 77 games, 24 points. It was
okay. There you go.
I mean, it's not ideal, but for that number and his potential,
no, but that's okay for bottom. Like that's not bad. Like if you're in the bottom six, really on the fourth line, what do you have? 24 points, you said?
Yeah.
That's not terrible. Like if you can get to 30, and if you think like you come to the Avalanche, like maybe you can get to that point, that's doable. That you would take that. You'd take 30 points for a fourth line guy. Yeah, I don't think that's terrible.
Yeah, they have him listed really low on the list because of that production, but I like the Sam Steele idea and possibility, maybe as a 3C, and build around that for a little bit. But you still have that roaring 20s line, and what you're going to do with that, he might just drop down to your fourth. But I like the idea of Sam Steele in a Colorado Avalanche sweater.
That's not a bad one. Not a bad one. We did get Vargar did send in a message over on subtext. And we're not really talking about RFAs, but he did say, unless you can flip RFAs with Carolina and do niches for Middlestat, I don't think the Avs can be a player for big name RFA. They're not going to be a big name player for most teams are not for big name RFAs. But I am not doing that anyway. I like Marty Nicias. I really do. I think he's a really good player. I don't like. He's a little bit too thin on the frame for me.
Yeah.
And are we already giving up on Casey Middlestat?
I'm not.
I thought he was great. Like, imagine what he can do in an off season and really get this system down. He is your 2C for the future, people. Like, I'm not getting rid of him. And I don't think the Avs really want to either.
Yeah, and he's going to be one of those that if you do let go and let him go somewhere else, it's going to be one of those that you're watching like a JT Compher had for a little bit last year, where he's putting up numbers. You're like, did we make the right move here? No, that would be Casey Middlestat for the rest of his career. You're going to be wishing that you kept him as a member of the Colorado Avalanche.
No, I think he's going to be really, really good next year. So, yeah, man, like nothing really excites me. But at the same time, it shouldn't. Like these I'm not trying to minimize like the value of fourth line guys. But I'm trying to like find someone where I'm like scrolling through this list, be like, that guy just hasn't been given a chance yet. and it's tough to find them in this list, and it is a long list. And there's someone on here that is maybe, if they're not going to give it to one of their youth guys, there's someone here on this list that they're going to give a shot to, and let's see what he does with it. You know what I mean? You have let's see, Nick Cousins, he's with Florida. He made just over $1 million.
And
Who
like
else is on there? Yeah.
you get to about the 20th name on these lists, whichever way you shake it. And what I just started shifting my attention from this list of free agents of centers, and you got to start looking at the Eagles. And is it time? And is this a better option than the gamble? Somebody who kind of knows the Avalanche system, has played with everybody that he'll potentially be playing with and participate in preseason with. Is it time to call up an Eagle in that position? Because, hey, it's a cheaper option. It's a more familiar option. I think that might be where you will want to go in a position that is as thin as the center position is going into next year.
We'll see. We'll see where this goes. So that's going to wrap it up for today. We're going to get to our next grade on tomorrow's episode, and we'll do one of the wings. I don't know if we'll do left or right wing. You have
or
a
Buffalo.
preference?
We'll go right wing.
We'll go right wing. Why not? All right, we'll do those tomorrow. So tune in for that. But for this one, that is going to wrap it up. So thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. And for Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.